King T was there during the foundation of West Coast hip hop. Long before the West Coast completely took over the rap industry in the early 90s, King T was already helping establish that California sound. He became closely associated with Compton during an era when the city was becoming one of the most recognizable places in hip hop. But here's the interesting part. King T is not from Compton. He was born in Los Angeles and became associated with the West Coast scene that surrounded Compton and South Central, but he's not from Compton. So how did King T end up representing Compton so heavily if that wasn't technically where he was from? He explained that story during our conversation.
I didn't grow up in Compton. I was put on to Compton. Mixmaster Spade and a couple of other cats put me down. I grew up all around Los Angeles, really. I even lived in the San Fernando Valley, Pacoima, actually.
Oh, man, I thought you was a CPT veteran.
Nah. I just represented well. When Spade put me down, I lived right around the corner from him on Caldwell and Kemp. Yeah, but I wasn't born and raised in Compton, no.
Toddy was the first one, man. He set it off with the Bataram and Just Say No with Mixmaster Spade, rest in peace. That's what made me want to be down from Compton. That was it. When I first really got into it, my mom whisked me away from LA and moved to Houston, Texas. But what was going on here in LA was, it was just exploding with Wrecking Crew, Uncle Jam's Army, and K-Day, KGFJ, and all that. But I had to go to Houston. So I took these tapes that Bobcat was on the air, Joe Cooley, Tony G, the Mixmaster. And I went up to this college station in Houston, KTSU, Texas Southern University, and I told them, this is me mixing. They didn't believe, I think I was about 15, 14 years old. They didn't believe me until they put me on the turntables and I really could do that shit. A lady out there by the name of Pamela Collins at Texas Southern University, she gave me my first chance on air out there on the little college station KTSU with this program they had called Kids Jam.
Okay.
And I was 14 years old, Saturday morning, cutting my ass off like I was a mix master out there at Texas Southern University. I got in a little trouble out there with my mom. I didn't want to go to school. So I wasn't going to school. I was sort of on a runaway type thing and ended up getting in trouble. Had to go to Harris County Youth Village out there. I was in there for about a year. She came back home, left me out there. So I kept running away from the youth village.
Oh, shit.
So, and they knew exactly where I was at. I would run away, like they'd take me to a dentist appointment and I'll run away. They'll take me to a dentist appointment at the college where I was a DJ, and I would run away and be on the radio that weekend. They come get me and take me back to jail. Ultimately, I was left out there. They sent me back out here to California to live with my grandmother in Pacoima. And that's where it all started. I bumped into Scotty D one day, ditching school again, walking around Pacoima, and just ran into Scotty D. Had a feeler shop out there. He actually closed, but I was looking through the window, so I don't know what I was thinking, but I saw the turntables back there, and I sat there till somebody got there, and it was Scotty, and met him, lied to him, said I was a part of Uncle Jam's Army, and he was already fucking with Roger, So, everybody laughed back then, but they saw I really had the talent, and they took me on, man, put me down, and that's why I've been claiming Compton to this day.
By the 1990s, gang culture associated with Los Angeles had become a national phenomenon. Although how it developed in each city would be very different from what was happening back in LA. But before King T was seeing this culture outside California, he had already learned firsthand how seriously certain words could be taken back home. And one incident at Skateland could have turned into a serious situation over one word. A lot of you may be too young to remember Skateland. I never got a chance to party there, but my homeboy Alonzo is about 20 years older than me. He did Skateland. He did Eve After Dark. He did Dudos. He was part of that whole scene. Skateland was famously portrayed in Straight Outta Compton as well. And King T ended up coming through Skateland as well. Popular skating rink that, like many other things in the hood, got taken out because, well, people don't know how to act in the parking lot. But if you grew up around LA street culture during the 80s and 90s, you already know certain words could carry a lot more weight depending on where you were and who you were around. Cuz is a perfect example. What might sound like a casual word to somebody unfamiliar with LA gang culture, this could be interpreted very differently in certain environments. King T learned that lesson during the 1980s when he was at Skateland and accidentally said "cuz" while he was surrounded by a group of Parus. And immediately, the atmosphere changed. I'll let King T tell you what happened.
I remember this one time we had to be escorted up out of there because I slipped up one night and said "cuz" on the mic. Yeah, they had to call security, and I think I was performing with Rodney O and Joe Cooley, and we all had to leave together, escorted by security, and they walked us to our van, and we had to get up out of there, or we would have been surrounded.
Stories like this give you a snapshot of what the environment surrounding early LA hip-hop was like. The music scene and the street scene were not identical, but they constantly crossed paths at skating rinks, clubs, concerts, parties, neighborhood events. Eventually, some of the biggest names in West Coast hip-hop decided to address the situation directly. The situation that was taking out young black and brown kids every single day. The gang violence. And that led to one of the most memorable posse cuts in rap history. In 1990, an incredible lineup of West Coast artists came together for the anti-gang record, We're All in the Same Gang. Oh, I remember when this song came out, ladies and gentlemen. It was something beautiful. The project featured artists like King T, Ice-T, Eazy-E, MC Hammer, Tone Loc, everybody who was big at that time. Young MC, Digital Underground, Above the Law. I mean, come on, man. The list goes on and on. They were all from the West Coast, and a lot of people say it was the West Coast answer to Self-Destruction. Self-Destruction was an East Coast posse cut where they were discussing the problems that were going on in New York. The idea was powerful. Take artists representing different parts of the West Coast and use hip-hop to send a message against gang violence. It was a brilliant idea. And King T had a first-hand connection to how this historic collaboration came together. One of the names connected to that story is Michael Concepcion, an important figure in Los Angeles music and community history. King T explained his memories of Michael Concepcion and what it was like participating in We're All in the Same Gang.
My first glimpse at a true hustler and player in the game. Mike was a real one. You know, he gave me a lot of advice early on and things like that. And he created something big when he did We All in the Same Gang. Yeah, it's things I can't talk about. He's got me out of tremendous trouble. You know, I used to be a little hard head, trying to prove myself and things like that, and he got me out of a few things, so I will always have the utmost respect for Mike.
Anything you can talk about?
No, just little smoke that I thought were big back then.
Okay.
Then you think about it now, I could have, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, Mike was there for me, and yeah, you know, he got my heart.
I'm one of the original members of the largest gangs it is, and I just got tired of seeing all the killing, and I said if somebody going to try to stop a lot of the killers, it should be somebody that one of the persons that created it. So I just went out and talked to all my friends that's on this rap project and asked them would they anticipate in doing a rap show, a rap song where we can hope that a lot of youth today listen to it and take heed to it where they stop all the killing.
I just watched that video the other day, and when you watch the video, it's almost like opening a time capsule. You're seeing multiple generations and styles of hip-hop, West Coast hip-hop specifically, together before the scene really exploded commercially. Keep in mind, 1990 East Coast was still holding it down. It wasn't really until the Chronic came out, right, to when the West Coast really had a hold on the industry. Within just a few years from that video, West Coast rap would go from fighting for national recognition to becoming arguably the center of hip-hop, period. And Dr. Dre's Chronic changed that. That changed the landscape of everything. Snoop became a superstar. And a little record label called Death Row Records became one of the most powerful and controversial labels in music. Which brings us to Suge Knight. You can't tell the story of West Coast hip-hop in the 90s without talking about Death Row. At its peak, Death Row could do no wrong. They had an unbelievable roster and a great run of albums. Anything that had the Death Row label on it, I was buying. Didn't really matter what it was. Dog Pound, Snoop, Dre. I mean, if it was affiliated with Death Row, I was buying it. And eventually, probably the greatest of them all, Tupac. But behind the scenes, Death Row developed a reputation that was just as famous as its music. And King T was close enough to that world to witness parts of that era firsthand. So during the interview, we asked him about Suge Knight and Death Row during the 90s.
We were all good friends, you know what I'm saying? Suge was a good cat, man. He put something together that was incredible, man, and it was a shame that he squandered it and lost it all. But it was the money that did it. It was, he didn't know, it was a sad situation. But Suge was cool, Suge. One thing about Suge, he knew who to mess with and who not to. You know what I'm saying? That's all, and I just hated the way things turned out. He had it all.
Whatever you think about Death Row, there's no denying how dramatically the label changed hip-hop, for good and bad. But by the middle of the decade, something else was happening. What began largely as competition between artists and record labels became wrapped up in a much bigger media narrative. East Coast versus West Coast. And eventually, two men became the faces of that conflict. And both of them are no longer here today. What a goddamn shame. Tupac and Biggie. If you ask me, I blame that Vibe magazine. Back then, we didn't have the internet. Back then, it was all about the magazines. And when you're walking through the store and you see a magazine that says East Coast versus West Coast war, and you're a hip-hop rap fan or whatever, you are going to pick that magazine up. And I truly believe that was the start that led to the conclusion of Pac and Biggie no longer being here. The media is powerful now, but it was much powerful. Now, it's about as powerful as it was now than it was back then as well. But looking back today, people sometimes talk about the East Coast, West Coast rivalry like every rapper in New York hated every rapper in California. The reality was much more complicated. There were personal conflicts, record label rivalries, diss records, and of course, the media hype. All happening at the same time. But because Tupac and Biggie were two of the biggest rappers alive on two of the biggest labels at the time, their personal feud came to symbolize something much larger. And King T was watching this unfold from inside the West Coast hip-hop community. He remembers the tension, he remembers the conversations, and he remembers what that period felt like before anyone knew how tragically it would end. Here's King T talking about what he remembers from the East Coast, West Coast era.
I saw it falling apart, like, you know, and how the media was portraying it and things like that. I didn't really mess around like that. Me and Pac and Biggie were cool. You know, it was all sad, and I kind of steered away from it. You know, it was just a sad situation. But I was in another lane, man. I stayed away from all that. I didn't really go around all that. I just saw it unravel, and it was a sad situation.
So how did you stay out of it?
Shit, I stayed my ass in the studio. You know, I would go out sometimes and see Pac, and when I was on the East Coast, because I worked a lot with I was working with Easy Mo B, and he was producing both of them cats at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And I used to be on the East Coast because, like I said, I had the King T for Life album on MCA, and we went to the East Coast and recorded and worked with a couple of East Coast producers, TR from Ultramagnetic and Nikki Nicole, the producer, and I used to see Big out there, and I just played. They both were my friends, but I just didn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? And I stayed away from that. You know, I had my own problems, my own issues. You know what I'm saying? But it was sad how all that played out.
Tupac had his life taken in September 1996. Biggie had his taken just 6 months later. Those two incidents changed hip-hop forever. Death Row's dominance began fading, and Dr. Dre had already left the label to begin the next chapter of his career. The next chapter was Aftermath Entertainment. And once again, King T found himself connected to a major turning point in West Coast rap history. When Dr. Dre left Death Row and launched Aftermath, expectations were enormous. This was the producer behind NWA, The Chronic, come on, Snoop's Doggy Style, and some of the most influential records in West Coast history. And King T eventually became part of Dre's new situation. On paper, it seemed like the perfect combination. One of the pioneers of West Coast rap working with one of the greatest producers in hip-hop history. King T recorded material connected to Aftermath, including the project that became known as Thy Kingdom Come. But things didn't work out the way many fans expected. The album went through delays, King T's relationship with the label changed, and the project wouldn't receive its proper release until years later, when it was too late. So what happened? Why didn't the King T and Dr. Dre partnership become the major comeback that it appeared capable of becoming? And ultimately, why did King T leave Aftermath? We asked him directly.
Well, like I said, we all used to hang, together a lot. Like I said, at Easy's mom's house, and we kind of, me and Pooh, we kind of shared equipment with Dre and Jinx and Eric, and saying we used to use the same equipment. We all used to work together at the same. Well, they worked at Audio Achievements. We worked at Echo Sound. But, we used to go back and forth, and we always talked about working together. I always used to visit the studio when Dre was working on the Chronic up there at the Solar Building, and I had to deal with Capitol. And, we just remained good friends. And I had a deal when they were I already had a deal when they were at Death Row. But once he left Death Row, I was kind of in between deals, and it was perfect timing. You know what I'm saying? We just got together, and I think I was like one of the first acts that he signed, one of the first rappers he signed on the West Coast. He didn't even have the Aftermath name yet, so we always talked about working together, and it was perfect timing. We just got together and did it. And I put the album together. I thought it was like, some of my best work, taking nothing away from DJ Pooh and the things we've done. but it was a different time, and you know, I always wanted to work with Dre. It was just a different sound, different sonic sound, and you know, things just got heavy because the kid Eminem came along, and I got a little paranoid about, because everyone's heard the stories about how, Dre could possibly, put you on the shelf, and, you might not never, so I got panicky and things like that. And I just asked to be released and asked, could I take my master's? And we were, he didn't want me to go, but he let me roll, and he helped me out with the situation. I was supposed to go over to Ruthless and Tamika, and we was trying to work that situation, but things kind of fell apart with the Ruthless situation and my management and things like that. So it just got shelved and bootlegged and all kind of versions, but the real version never really came out.
King T's story is important because his career connects several different eras of West Coast hip hop. He was there when LA rap was still fighting for national respect. He watched Compton become one of the most famous cities in hip hop. He traveled the country and witnessed LA street culture appearing thousands of miles away. He participated in one of the greatest West Coast collaborations of all time, We're All in the Same Gang, during an attempt by some of the biggest West Coast rappers to address gang violence. He witnessed the rise of Death Row. He lived through the East Coast, West Coast era. And eventually he worked with arguably the greatest producer in the world, Dr. Dre, during the early years of Aftermath. That's a lot of West Coast hip-hop history connected to one man's career. King T's influence goes beyond record sales or Billboard numbers. He's part of that generation that helped create the foundation for the artists who came afterward. So if you're only familiar with Dr. Dre, Snoop, Tupac, and the Death Row era, go back a few years earlier and listen to what artists like King T were doing. Because when you trace the family tree of West Coast hip-hop, King T is one of those names you can't leave out.
When I met Scotty, that's when, I met everybody else, from Bobcat to DJ Pooh. Pooh didn't really like me, you know what I'm saying, because I was a DJ. And I was, competition
Right.
to him, but you know what I'm saying? But I also like, after watching the movies like Wild Style and Beat Street and Breakin' and things like that, I always used to like to grab the mic while I was DJing. And, Pooh began to say, my voice, I sound good on the mic, you know what I'm saying? And so I started saying little old school rhymes and stuff while Pooh DJ'd, and it just came out better that way. And I was very much influenced by listening to LL and people like Tila Rock and, the old school, Melly Mel, even Ice-T, and that was it, and he gave me the name King T. The real MC that made me want to get on the mic was this rapper by the name of Tila Rock.
Okay.
So I took his name, Tila, instead of Terry. I had it on the side of my Kango. When I had the feeler down the arm and leg, it was Tila from the Feeler Shop. The first single I did was Payback Some Mother.
Right.
Scotty D ended up hooking up some studio time with DJ Unknown, the unknown DJ that he gave me my first little I don't want to say if it was a record deal, but my first little chance at a recording artist was on Techno Hop Records through Nicola. And he had Ice first, Ice-T. So I came next. We put out Payback Some Mother. That's the first thing me and Pooh did together. The second single we did was The Coolest, and the B-side was You Better Bring a Gun. And That's when I bought out to Compton and watched thing out, you know what I'm saying? So that's where it all started, techno hop.
How did you link up with the Alcoholics?
Well, East after DJ Aladdin, because he was my DJ for a minute, and I think he got hurt, got in a car accident, and J-Ro was always my hype man on stage, and he hooked me up with E Swift, and E Swift flew Tash in from Ohio, and they were already working on a demo with A&M Records and the name of their group was called ESP, Everyday Street Poets. And this was around the time where everybody was putting their crews on, you know, their boys, their homeboys on, and things like that. Yeah, you know, you had the Lynch Mob, you had Terror Squad, you know, things like that. And me and Pooh was sitting up trying to figure out, you know, if we, you know, put our boys, or if we create a group or put our crew on, what would we call it? And there was two choices, like from I think Pooh chose the Daily Chronics or the Alcoholics, and we ended up going with the Alcoholics because, you know, that's all we used to do is party and get faded and, you know, mess with the girls, you know, because like I said, we wasn't really trying to go down the gangster lane anymore because NWA was here and Easy and Cube was on his own and things like that. So we came up with the Alcoholics, and we just chose E Swift and J-Ro, he's been with me from the beginning, and Tash came on, and we just called them the Alcoholics. And from there, the whole crew was created, the Liquid Crew, and we brought on like the Far Ride, Montage, Exhibit came, and Stylistic Jones, and a lot of other groups was created, you know, from the Liquid Crew, like Dilated Peoples, Loop Pack, you know, groups like that. But that's how they were formed, and shit. They got on. We got them to deal with Loud Records, and we took off with it. You know.
What was your biggest record?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I think it was I don't know. Shit. Yeah, Bass is the single. The original version is the single that really got me my major deal at Capitol Records.
Okay. By that time, you were with Greg Mack by then, right?
Well, that's that. Yeah, we put that single out on Mac Daddy Records. Yeah, that's straight. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember the whole look of you. That's what it was. You were at Unknown had a deal. He was at Macola, and we was trying to get him to bring some product to West Coast. But then somehow you ended up over at Capitol with Greg Mack. That's what it was.
No, when we when we did the single, I don't know who distributed Mac Daddy Records, but that's what got us our deal at Capitol. And once we got to Capitol, Greg wasn't a part of it. We had to pay Greg to get out of the contract I had with Greg, and we shot him a couple of dollars, and we remixed it for the Capitol album, for Acting Fool album. Yeah.
Who produced that? Who produced Acting Fool?
DJ Pooh.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So Unknown had to do with that?
Nope.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought
we paid our dues with DJ Unknown, you know what I'm saying? And I would, it was a blessing. He hooked, I can't say nothing bad about it. You got to go through them stages, and we learned, by the time we got to Capitol, we knew what we wanted to do. So it was great that we had that experience over at Techno House.
Thank you for tuning in to Dusty Vision TV. Please hit that like button if you have not already. And if this is your first time joining the channel and you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, you just might appreciate this bonus clip I'm about to play for you right now. Let's take it back to 1990. May 22nd, 1990 to be exact. One day after my 12th birthday, a song was released that would take the world by storm. We're All in the Same Gang from the West Coast Rap All-Stars. Now, this song was the West Coast answer to Self-Destruction, which was an East Coast peace anthem. Self-Destruction was a dope song where a bunch of East Coast artists got on a record and addressed the violence and things that were going on in the community. It's a dope record. If you've never checked out Self-Destruction, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good song. Very good song for hip hop, especially at that time, because 1990, there was this transition, 90, 91, 92, where, we had the, late 80s, early 90s, we were house party generation. We had the funky haircuts. We had the bright clothes, the cross colors. We were doing all these weird dances. Then gangster rap became popular and everyone's mood switched up. So this was right around that time. But the East Coast did have Self-Destruction, and the West Coast came back with We're All in the Same Gang. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the people on this album, the who's who of West Coast rappers at that time: Above the Law, Tone Loc, Ice-T, NWA, Digital Underground, Hammer, Eazy-E. Like, all these people were on one song together to talk about peace. It was all the brainchild of Michael Concepcion. Michael Concepcion was a former gangbanger turned music executive, and he had this bright idea of putting a lot of rappers on a song from the West Coast to address the gang problem in Los Angeles that at that point was about as high as it gets.
I'm one of the original members of the largest gangs it is, and I just got tired of seeing all the killing, and I said if somebody going to try to stop a lot of the killers, it should be somebody that one of the persons that created it. So I just went out and talked to all my friends that's on this rap project and asked them would they anticipate in doing a rap show, a rap song where we can hope that a lot of youth today listen to it and take heed to it, where they stop all the killing.
Late 80s, early 90s, it was going down in Los Angeles. It was a war zone, even for a civilian like myself. I remember like it was yesterday. Gangs hanging out on the corner. This is before all the gang injunctions and things like that. So, it was nothing to hit a corner and 17 Crips will be hanging on a corner. You're like, damn, man, I got to walk through these motherfuckers. Like, or 23 essays hanging on a corner. You're like, man, they soon did away with all that. But 1990 was a rough time to live in Los Angeles for everybody. By all accounts, most people could agree. You think it's bad now. It's bad now. This year is bad now, but guys, if you could survive the 90s, you could survive anything. The video was filmed in Nickerson Gardens, a big project out here in LA that is still a big project out here in LA, home of the bounty hunters. Now, this video specifically doesn't use the traditional blue and red for Crip and Blood. They use, I'm going by memory, yellow and green, I do believe. They used yellow and green. One gang was rocking their yellow and one gang was rocking the green. It was very interesting that they made that choice. And I guess it's probably a good choice to make. You don't want an actor being mistaken for a gang member and shot on the streets, especially around that time, to where gangsters were shooting first and asking questions later. And this song, when it came out, the anticipation around it. I remember the anticipation specifically about seeing it live on the Arsenio Hall show.
Thank you. This weekend, Mayor Tom Bradley, LA police officers and gang members, along with my next guest, will all join together to start something called Peace Weekend. And as Bill said, hopefully it'll be Peace Life. The goal of Peace Weekend is to stop crime and violence among our nation's youth.
Kids, I know a lot of you don't know about Arsenio Hall. Arsenio Hall was our Joe Rogan. He was it on late night. Everybody wanted to see who Arsenio was going to bring on. If Arsenio was going to have Madonna on, everyone was tuned in. And everyone was tuned in for the We're All in the Same gang when they came on Arsenio Hall. And I don't believe I got to watch it that night, but I do believe, I know, because I had it on videotape for years. I do believe my mom recorded it for me and I was able to watch it the next day, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm pretty sure it was on a school night. So I doubt if she was going to let me stay up till 11:35. And the thing about those days, the performance didn't start at 11:35. Shit, that performance could probably started at like 1 a.m, even looking back now. So I highly doubt if I watched it live, but I know for a fact I saw it the next day because I had it on video cassette for years until a lot of my videos disappeared.
We'll take a commercial. We're to come back with a song from the West Coast Rap All-Stars.
But watching this on Arsenio Hall, man, I mimicked every single line. I know the song by heart to this day, but just to see him on TV and to hear them mess up a little bit, some of them messed up. But it was really cool, man, to see all these rappers. And this is really before I even knew I wanted to pursue being a rapper. This may have been the tipping point to where I think I want to do this. Because I remember watching them with so much awe, just like, oh my God.
Did you ever run across or do any business with Michael Concepcion?
I knew Michael. Me and Michael were about the same age. He went to Washington. I went to Centennial. Even after he got shot, Michael Concepcion would come to he could come to the Eve After Dark. Michael Concepcion could go anywhere he wanted to go.
So the song starts with a radio announcer saying, "I'm King News and I come to you with the truth. The mean streets took 6 more lives overnight, all the result of gangbang stupidity. By the way, you gangsters should know one of your victims was a 3-year-old girl. Well, you gang members, you still don't get it, do ya?" And then King T comes in, the legendary King T. "It's straight up madness everywhere I look. Used to be a straight A student, now he's a crook, robbing people just to smoke a shoe up. Used to have a crew cut, now he's a poop, but dropped out of school, then he joins the neighborhood gang. Hanging on the street selling cane to his own people. And when I say people, I mean color. You a stupid mother,
That's all the shit that I was around, gang banging, and that was also our thing, is trying to get people to stop. You know, it was a lot of killing even back then going on, and a lot of, we wasn't able to perform certain places and do certain things because of the gang violence and the killing that was going on.
Ice-T, legend, not only in hip hop, but now in TV and movies. Dude is a legend. He made several appearances back in the day on Arsenio. Here's one that stands out. This was at the height of the Crip blood war that was going on in the streets, not just in LA, but all over the country at this point. And Ice was a person who spoke for the streets. Let's check out this classic clip of Ice-T on Arsenio Hall.
You spoke before Congress? Yeah, it was funny because after we did I did the soundtrack for Colors and stuff, and then all of a sudden I got a call from Congress, the Black Caucus, to come out there and talk to them about drugs and gangs. So they got all these politicians sitting on this big thing, and here I am sitting up there in a silk shirt and a Kango, cooling like this. And they like, all right, everybody spoke, all these doctors and stuff, and they said, Ice-T, why are there gangs and drugs, I said, all you fools sitting in here and gonna ask me, and you know exactly why there's gangs and drugs, because you don't care about it. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, Ice-T spitting knowledge. First of all, that is a dope Raider jacket he's rocking. Dog, I missed that authentic 90s look. Not this fake new 90s look they got going on, but the authentic 90s look, man. And Cube T spoke in front of Congress, and they asked him, how could we stop the drugs and gangs? Why are there drugs and gangs? And Ice-T is like, you fools know why there is, because you don't care. Let's continue with Ice-T on Arsenio Hall back in the day.
And the gang situation in Los Angeles has been here 20 years. And then a lady got killed in Westwood, you know, a non-black, somebody out of the neighborhood, and all of a sudden there were 387 murders that year and 70,000 gang members. And I said they didn't join that night.
They didn't care until it started creeping into the suburbs and the white neighborhoods. Let's keep it 100. They didn't care, man. And Ice-T's breaking it down so nicely.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, you used to be a gang member, right?
Well, I was involved with gangs. When I went to Crenshaw High School, and when you got to that school, it was kind of like you either with us or without us. And down in the neighborhood, I mean, everybody is affiliated with gangs. Even little girls walk down the street and somebody will say, well, what set lives here? And they'll say, well, this is the Crips and this is the Bloods. And they know what their mama tells them what color to wear. And it's something as you grow up, you just learn. So everybody from my neighborhood or down in South Central Los Angeles is affiliated with gangs. I was never a hardcore member that was like, let's go out and kill people. But I used to roll with the sets, and I know what.
That's so true. You know, it's kind of weird being in LA. You have some sort, even though you may not bang. I'm the same way. I don't bang, never wanted to bang. Well, there was one time where I was a little wannabe. I was a wannabe, like around 12, something like that. But even then, I knew I wasn't trying to join no gang. But I was a wannabe. But it's crazy how living in LA, you are affiliated somehow, with a gang. Whether you know the person, whether your dad's in a gang, your uncle, cousin, like somehow the neighborhood you live in, somehow. Ice-T's breaking it down.
What makes them tick, you know what I'm saying? I was just lucky, you know. I advanced from the gang life to be a hustler. I was like, well, the gang banging wasn't making no money back in them days, so I traded my sweatshirt for a silk shirt and was shaking dice on the RTD, you know, throwing the 3 cards down, trying to learn.
What y'all remember about the RTD, the Rough, Tough, and Dangerous? That was our bus system in Los Angeles, and we called it the Rough, Tough, and Dangerous. It was the RTD, Rapid Transit something or other. But, dude, that thing took you to every single hood. So that's when you learned as a kid, hey, don't wear red, don't wear blue, don't wear certain colors, because you'll start off in a neighborhood that may be all blue, but that RTD bus is taking you through every single hood in LA. And in 2 or 3 stops, you're going to be in a Piru hood. In 2 or 3 stops after that, you're going to be in an SA hood. So it really taught you, man. The 90s taught you a lot about survival, dude, whether you are a banger or a civilian like myself.
Learn how to do that and stuff. So,
were you ever heavily involved in crime? Did you make a living illegally?
I made a better living than most people in this audience, you know what I'm saying? And it's not really hard. I mean, half of the world is what would be considered the underworld, you know what I'm saying? You got the legal world and the illegal world. And there's crime going on right now all around, probably right here on this lot. They just don't call it the same crime that they call it on the streets. But I was involved with it, and I thought that was the only way to get paid, because there's a line that says, here's the establishment, you can't get in. Here's the underworld, no applications. And most black young brothers get in that mode. They feel like they can't make it in this world.
Woo! Ice-T, ripping the microphone the way I do. Listen close, my brothers, because I'm talking to you. The problem is we got a suicidal lifestyle when 90% of us are living foul and wild. Let's say job, you say bad joke. I'd rather jack another brother, watch the gun smoke. Come on, dog. He's breaking his own lyrics down. He's killing it. And
And I was just like that. And I was out there getting paid. Then this movie called Breaking came to me. And the guy, a producer, walked in. He says, we're going to shoot this movie. You'll be our rapper. He'll be the DJ. And these will be my breakers. And I'll make $50,000, $50,000 million, right? So I'm like looking at the man like, I ain't been in no movie, man. I'm about to go get paid, man. You crazy? Get up, get away from me, you know? And then my homeboys came at me and they were like, Ice, man, you need to cool out, man. You need to cool out, man. You need to go and get that money, man. White people like you, man.
You know? Someone came and told me that same thing years ago.
See, man, Arsenio was good with the comebacks, dude. He said, somebody told me the same thing a few years ago, and he talked like a, you know, stereotypical white guy. And look, Arsenio Hall was playing off of that, dude. I love that.
It's sad, though. It's sad, though, you know? So they told me, they said I can make it. And I'm like looking at them like, man, I thought I got it made, man. And they like, no, you got a chance. And right there, that's when my whole life kind of flipped. Because I realized what we were doing really wasn't what the guys I looked up to wanted to be doing. They wanted to be sitting on our Arsenio Hall show. Yeah. You know, they wanted...
Nobody wants to hustle. Nobody... I don't care how glamorous they make it look, how glamorous these rappers make it look to hustle, and how glamorous people make it on Instagram to be a hustler. Oh, man, I'm a hustler, man. Yeah, I'm a hustler. Nobody wants to be a hustler, dog, especially when it's dealing with illegal stuff. You just don't. You know at any moment it could end. You know that no one retires after hustling illegally. You know that you're either going to be in jail, in prison, or underground. Like, that's literally... If you hustle enough and hard enough, you want to hustle hard, eventually that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a casket or you're going to get prison. And T broke that down perfectly right here. Perfectly. He said, man, most hustlers would rather be on the Arsenio Hall show. And that's the truth.
But they felt they couldn't do it. And also they knew that if I had a chance to make it, then I maybe would have a chance to come back and get them. So now, like, I got my little production going, and I'm trying to get all my homeboys. You know, a lot of them are filtering in and out of the penitentiary system, and they coming back. A lot of them won't never be back on the streets, you know, but I'm trying to help them. So I got like a mission to, you know, school people about that high roller life you think you want, but what really is at the end of that road, it's not really what you think. Okay,
Ice-T, tell me that wasn't a classic interview. Tell me... I'm literally getting goosebumps just watching this right now because I'm watching it as you all are listening to it, and I'm just watching it, and it's taking me back to such a fun time, dog. 91, 92, 93, 94, my high school years. Looking back, it was a great time. I'm not going to say it's the time of my life because I'm having the time of my life now, almost 50. I'm going to be in Europe in 3 months. I'm going to be in Yosemite a month after that. Like, I'm living my best life right now. But I'm telling you guys, there's something about the 90s and shit. You weren't paying bills and, you know what I'm saying? You was banging chicks. I mean, it was a good time for me. I'm sorry if anyone out there didn't have a good high school experience, but I had a great high school experience. Let's take it back to 1990 and one of the greatest TV shows in the history of television. I'm talking about In Living Color.
All the jive joints in the world see to bring a big butt into mine.
In Living Color.
Do you know I love you when your eyes are bulging?
An all-new episode next.
I was probably 11 going on 12 when this show first aired back in April of 1990. And I remember the anticipation behind this show. I remember the buildup. And I remember sitting down and watching the first episode of this show and telling myself, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. I need more of this. I didn't understand many of the jokes back then, being 11, 12. But I knew they were funny. I knew they were groundbreaking. And I knew that I had never, ever, ever seen anything like this. Not only me, I knew the world had never seen anything like this.
But I ain't one to gossip, so if anyone asks you, you ain't heard it from me.
Let's go back to April 1990. Different time, man. Very fun time to be a kid. If you kids don't, or if you kids didn't get a chance to grow up in the 90s, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't understand, but 1990 felt like a new beginning. I remember this. It just felt like a new beginning. Things were changing all over the world. Russia was defeated. I mean, Germany had just tore down their walls in Berlin.
Our top story. The Iron Curtain between East Germany and West Berlin has come tumbling down. East Germany announced today it is opening its borders, allowing its citizens to go anywhere they wish.
And people were looking for something different. In comes In Living Color. And what makes this show so great and what makes this time so great is this was still that transition to where we were rocking the baggy clothes, the bright clothes. I mean, the brighter, the better. Yellow, green, orange. I mean, bright red, everything. Lime blue, like every color you could think of under the rainbow. We were dancing. We were having a really fun time at parties. This is right around the time the movie House Party with Kid and Play came out. Just a couple short years later, a lot would change. Gangster rap would take over. And instead of the bright baggy clothes and the polka dot shirts and the funky haircuts, now everybody's dressing baggy, toking on chronic, and dressing and looking like a gangster. But 1990 was that transition period, man. And I remember I was rocking my African medallions. I was rocking my funky clothes. I was rocking my weird hairstyles. And I was getting a lot of this from the clothes and the stylings I saw on TV shows like In Living Color.
In Living Color came about after I'ma Get You Sucker had the success that it had. I had a screening for the film execs from all the studios. Everybody came. The first call I got was from Fox.
Now, In Living Color started its original run on April 15th, 1990. And they went for a cool 4 years. They went all the way to May 1994.
They explained to me, look, we got this new network we're doing, blah, blah, blah. And they said, we really want to push the edge. And, you know, we loved your movie. And, you know, we would love for you to create something for us. And you know, you can do whatever you want to do. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, you have total freedom.
The later years of the show were not as good as the beginning of the show. The first 2 years, phenomenal, amazing. The cast was just so good. They were clicking on all cylinders. The sketches they were creating were groundbreaking. They were phenomenal. And they were touching on pop culture, everything that was happening in pop culture at that time. In Living Color would give you a snapshot of it every week.
Hi, boys and girls. Your friend Pee-wee has been on a new adventure, which is why it's time to buy the new improved Pee-wee dough.
I can't remember what day it came on. Was it Thursdays, Saturdays? I can't remember off the top of my head. All I know is when I became addicted to the show, I recorded every single episode for years. If I missed an episode, it was pretty much, I was depressed the whole week. And keep in mind, kids, this isn't when you could just go on Netflix, your Netflix app or your Hulu app and watch any TV show you want at any given time, man. It's 12 midnight, man. I feel like watching A Living Color, man. I'm going to go on my Netflix app. Nope, ain't happening. If you didn't sit down on a Thursday at 8 p.m. to watch A Living Color or have your mom record it on VHS while you're outside playing with your friends, then there's a possibility that you may never see that episode again. There were episodes that I missed back then, very rare, but there were In Living Color episodes that I missed that I didn't see again until they came out on YouTube in the 2000s. That's how it was, kids. And like I said, if you're outside playing with your friends or you're going on a trip or something, you'd ask your mom, hey, Mom, In Living Color's coming on at 8 o'clock. Can you please record it, Mom? Please, please, please. So your mom would record it and you would come home whenever you did, back on Sunday or Monday or whatever, and you'd watch a pre-recorded episode of In Living Color on your big VHS video. Yeah, so you kids don't know about those videos, man. That was everything back then. At that time, I was watching a lot of other shows as well. I can't lie, I was addicted to Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah, I was addicted to Beverly Hills 90210, man. Team Brenda. Team Kelly. I was just thinking about back in the day, back in the 90s. And one thing that was an unfortunate situation, and we'll even go back to the 80s when this was happening. Mid to late 80s. Good time. Unfortunate time, though. It was pretty rough back in the 80s and 90s. If you lived in 80s and 90s Los Angeles, even as a civilian, even as a regular person, you seen some shit, and you're built different. You're built a little bit different. Today's LA, and no disrespect to the dudes in the street who are putting in work and bloopity blop, but I don't know if a lot of these guys would last in 80s, 90s LA. Even as civilians, it was crazy, dog. I mean, 1992, 93, 94, we were the murder capital of the country. The gang capital of the country. The Southland, they used to call us. If you go to LA, you better be careful. They were showing news stories all over the country about Los Angeles. It used to be palm trees and blondes. But now, the Crips and Bloods have taken over, and the city of Los Angeles is now known as the Southland. They were doing news stories all over the country. And LA's reputation preceded it. I mean, if you went to other places back then and you told them you were from LA, you were almost seen as this cool, kind of tough guy. Because LA was crazy. And other places around the country knew about LA. One thing they knew about LA, because it was happening so frequently, and it was very unfortunate in the mid to late 80s, was people were actually dying, getting their lives taken from them over Jordans. People were having their lives ended over starter jackets. People were having their lives ended over British Nikes, K-Swiss. It was an unfortunate time. And it started with Jordans. From what I remember, and I guess that's when it really became on the map. Jordans were everybody wanted Jordans back in the late 80s, right? Mid-80s. Let's go even right around there. Everybody wanted Jordans, but not everybody could afford Jordans because not everybody could afford $89. That's right. One time Jordans used to be $89. That sounds so cheap right now, but keep in mind, this is 1985, 86 we're talking about. Your dollar was a little bit different back then. But people were literally having their lives taken, and unfortunately it was mostly people of color were having their lives taken over a pair of Michael Jordan shoes. That's right. Kids were going to school, and they may not even make it home that night because they had their life taken over a pair of shoes. And the rest of the country is seeing this. And the rest of the country is saying, what the F is going on in Los Angeles, California? They're killing each other for Michael Jordan shoes. They're shooting each other over someone wearing red, someone wearing blue. What the heck is going on in Los Angeles, California? It was really like that, guys. Reebok pumps. People were getting popped for their pumps, bro. It was happening. And it was very unfortunate because I wanted Jordans back then. But you know, when you read the news, your parents don't want to buy you Jordans. Starter jackets. I love starter jackets. I wanted a starter jacket. Couldn't afford a starter jacket. The only time I wear a starter jacket is when I get it from my homeboy Bone. My boy Bone had a few of those bad boys, and there's pictures of me rocking his starter jackets. We're friends to this day. We've been friends for 32 years, something like that. That's my dog. And I used to rock his starter jackets, man. Hoyas, Georgetown Hoyas. I mean, Duke. Right? I know I'm taking you all back with that, man. Kentucky, huh? Who remembers the 90s like that? But people were getting popped for their starter jacket. Or at least getting run up on. Run that starter jacket. And you would take off they were usually hoodies, so you had to take them off. So could you imagine how pissed you are? And then sometimes your head gets stuck on the thing. Like, God damn it. Over here getting robbed and shit. I can't even take off my starter jacket. Gosh, dang it. But it got so bad that they started banning them in schools. They started banning starter jackets. They started banning things like LA Raider hats, LA Kings hat, anything Raiders. At my school, I remember you couldn't wear because it was seen as gang attire. It was seen as something that the cholos wore, the gangsters. And you couldn't wear the LA Kings attire. You couldn't wear Raiders gear. There were also shoes that you probably shouldn't wear back then. I'm telling you guys right now, there's a reason why I wear a lot of neutral colors as I get older. I'm wearing sort of a gray shirt tonight. Shout out to the Warriors. But I usually wear black. Like 80 to 90% of my wardrobe is black. And that's because I grew up in LA, and you kind of, in the 90s, you just couldn't wear red or blue. You really didn't want to wear red or blue because you didn't want to be in a neighborhood. We're like, why are you wearing those red shoes, homie? Where you from? And it could become a situation. Now, Crips wear red, Bloods wear blue. I mean, everybody's wearing each other's colors. I mean, but not in the 90s. There was a fine line. So to this day, I wear a lot of neutral colors, grays and blacks. That's pretty much mostly what I wear. But back then, you had to be careful what you wore, man.